Welcome to Brutality Solo Campaign Mission number 5, and if you'll recall from the last episode, Miles is still captured by this town, and our people have to save him. This is our last chance to save him, or he is gone for good in this campaign. So, in the middle of the night, our guys are able to infiltrate another part of the town. You'll see this layout is different than last time, and they, under the cover of darkness, realize that he has been put into a teleportation chamber. It's not a stasis chamber. And as soon as the merchant can arrive tonight to inspect the goods, the slaver merchant is going to put in the coordinates and he will be teleported away. So what our warband has to do is we have to put in our own coordinates so that he gets rescued. So that is the mission for tonight. So I will show you that our warband is over here and they're discussing exactly what they're going to do. And they decide that they're going to try and run some interference. There are guards around, so they're going to have to deal with them. But hopefully they can get Miles back. Alright, we have finished deploying our forces. You'll see Lancer right here. You'll see Reich right there. You'll see Gil. You'll see Dunch. And then over here, there's the double gunner, we call him. There's the spy over there. And then, lo and behold, that monster that came out last game, we decided that that was actually the slime boss's pet monster. So that monster is now a monster in this mission, and he's on their side. And then also the robot with the drones. So now, as far as this mission goes, it's called Bounty Hunters. We now have to, this is the way we would like our models to be, but now they each have to scatter D10 inches in any direction. So this is what makes it interesting. Alright, after scattering everybody, there have been some huge changes made. Gil went from here to there, not a big deal. Poor Dunch went all the way back here. Reich was there. Reich went all the way back here, full 10 inches to scatter. Poor Lancer, she must have got confused during the infiltration. She started right there, and she ends all the way over there in enemy territory. The double gunner moves over here, and then for the most part, minus this one little drone here, everybody scattered towards the objective on the enemy side, which is not good. So we are in a serious, hard situation. Now that we've established that it's actually nighttime, we are going to turn up the lights a little bit, as you can see now, because I don't want you to strain your eyes trying to see the action. So, there's one last thing that you need to know about this mission, and the Bounty Hunter mission has snipers, essentially. So this is dark enough in here that the snipers up on these towers around the town, they're going to be shooting at anybody who runs, shoots, charges, or uses powers, because they're going to think it's the intruders, not the friendlies. So that's what's going to be happening here. So anytime we do any of those actions besides move, we're going to take a bleeding token, because they're going to shoot us with darts or something small to try to tranquilize us. And we'll see how that goes, but it's also going to affect the enemies. The first activation went to Lancer, and she luckily has a high movement. She moved all the way around here into base contact with the objective. She did not run, charge, shoot, or use powers, so she did not take a bleeding token. The next one to activate is the double gunner there. He aimed at her and shot. And now she lost a hit point, and now he did trauma on her, which is going to be -3 to her save. So she normally has a save of 4, now it's only a 1. That is truly unfortunate. I really don't think we're going to be able to win this game, but we're going to fight tooth and nail. The next activation is Reich. He's a skirmisher, so he runs as a free action. He moves and runs all the way up here and gets in base contact with that. Unfortunately, he gets a bleeding token because he ran, as well as that guy also got a bleeding token. And this monster was the next to activate. He successfully charges Lancer, which gives him a bleeding token, and he just cuts her literally in half with his pincers. He just snaps her and just instantly murders her. She does nothing in return. I gotta tell you, this fight is not going our way from the get-go. My daughter Gabby is rolling critical highs and critical lows, and just a ton of criticals. So Gil decides, since he's a fighter, he's going to strike first. He's going to try and take out this monster and push him back. He successfully charges, dealing himself a bleeding token from the snipers above, and he does 1 damage. Unfortunately, with 3 attacks and all that, she only got 1 damage through. That's 1 hit point and agony. The monster strikes back and does 2 unsaved damage to poor Gil. Gil had 4 hit points, and then Gabby rolled a 10 on the piercing chart, and we lost another hit point on poor Gil. So we've lost 1 person already. We've nearly lost 2 people. The robot comes over here and immediately staunches the bleeding of the monster, so it is no longer bleeding, and that was their activation. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, Miles. I think you are going to be a slave. So at the beginning of this, I tried to decide that we were going to go the easy route and try not to get a whole lot of bleeding tokens. They were going to go the aggressive route and get lots of bleeding tokens and see which one works out better. So Dunch, for his activation, just moves up casually and does nothing else, so he does not get any bleeding tokens. They moved their spy guy right there next to the robot, between the 2 robots, and he aimed and shot at Gil, and my daughter's rolling strikes again. He missed one of his shots but rolled a critical on the other one, so all 3 of them hit, and unfortunately Gil failed every single save possible, and poor Gil was shot down pretty darn quickly. So I'm beginning to learn that you don't just infiltrate this group's base unannounced. The final activations for the enemies are that little robot right next to the objective there, and he just gets in base to base. And the Dominant runs over here and attempts to make a pretty easy charge against Dunch, but fails and gets shot anyway, taking a bleeding token. So we got a lot of blood on this field right here. We're starting turn 2. I'm not entirely certain that we're making the right decisions here, but we are going to... Dunch shot at him, dealt him a wound, and gave him -2 fighting skill and blinded, which is definitely helping this turn. Meanwhile, Devil Gunner chose to ignore his bleeding. He lost a hit point. He moves over and fires everything into Reich. Luckily, Reich has a very high dexterity, and he misses all of his shots, but it gave him another bleeding token. So if someone doesn't staunch his bleeding this upcoming turn, he's going to die next turn and just bleed out. Reich staunches his own bleeding, but he still, of course, loses a hit point at the beginning of the turn for bleeding before it can be staunched. The monster, because my daughter's rolling crazy weird today, his willpower check is critically passed. He gets out of his agony. He climbs up here and tries to charge down at Dunch, but he loses it by about 1 inch in the charge roll. So that's pretty good for us. Now that we're all done activating, they've got a lot of activations to do. The little robot goes over to the Devil Gunner and removes 1 of his bleeding tokens. The spy says, forget all this nonsense, I'm going to shoot anyway. He takes a hit point from the bleeding. He comes over here and aims, shooting 3 shots at Reich. Reich is able to save all of them. So he is sitting here just taking all kinds of fire trying to save Miles, as the loyal servant would. Finally, this little robot goes over here and removes the bleeding off of the Dominant, and then the Dominant uses his activation to just sit there because he was blinded this turn, but now that's removed. That's the end of turn 2. I also forgot to mention that there is no turn limit to this game. It's until either one side is completely dead or they get the objective away. At the start of this turn, I just realized I did not put a bleeding token on him for shooting at the Dominant, and I did not put a bleeding token on him for trying to charge. So those are now rectified. They both have a bleeding token. In keeping with how bad this game has been going, Devil Gunner decides to activate. He loses a hit point and gains another bleeding token. He fires at Reich, and Reich loses a hit point and gets -2 dexterity. Then, actually before that, Dunch took a hit point from his bleeding, but sacrificed his whole turn to staunch his bleeding, so he's sitting there. At the beginning of this turn as well, we declared that Dunch is looking especially menacing, and nobody can charge him this turn. So that's one of our feats for horror. And then Reich is just going to sit there in his activation. He's got nowhere to go. He's desperately trying to have the boss freed, but there's really not much he can do, so we're just hoping that these bleeding tokens can take their toll on the enemy while we try to survive. After Reich activates, the Dominant here runs and charges Reich. He shockingly does nothing to Reich. Reich strikes him back, makes him lose a hit point, and gains another bleeding token in addition to the bleeding token he gets for charging. So that is pretty amazing. Then this robot comes over here and removes 1 bleeding token from the spy, and the monster just climbs down here, takes a bleeding token, and he's waiting for He's waiting for Dunch to be able to be chargeable next turn. So that's all he's doing. In nearly every single mission we've played with Reich, he has proven his worth. Even though he's a little tentacled guy right here with a sword, he got pushed back, he struck this guy, gave him a bleeding and lost a hit point. He's in the middle of all the enemies right here. The spy decides, you know what, I'm gonna just bleed out if I have to. He loses a hit point from bleeding and gains another bleeding token. He aims and shoots, hitting Reich twice, point blank, and Reich is able to save both of them, which is amazing. Reich is hanging in there. Beginning of a new brutal turn, and Reich, for better or for worse, maybe for worse, I don't know, he decided that if he can just wait out these two guys, he will no longer be shot at, and matter of fact, this guy as well. So Reich ran back over here and jumped down there. You'll notice that this guy is not actually in base contact with the objective, so he can't do it. He can't activate it. So let's see what happens with Reich just hiding over there with his single hit point left. And by the way, I said he ran, but he did not actually run. He's got a movement of 10 inches. So he hopped right down in there. Let's see what happens. We actually may have a chance at this. Gabby is redeeming herself. The monster successfully charged in, got a bleeding token for it. He ran into Dunch, did 3 hits, and Dunch has a save of 6. Dunch actually tanked all 3 hits. And he struck back and dealt a wound to the monster, believe it or not. So, just in the previous games, Dunch and Reich are actually something to be feared. And Dunch is perfectly unharmed here. And now this monster has a bleeding and an extra wound lost. This little robot over here activated, ran over here, and this robot activated, ran over there. There's really nothing they can do for anybody. Dunch activated but did nothing because he can't move this way because of the enemies, and he doesn't want to shoot because he'll get a bleeding token. So we're just trying to wait out the clock here. Well, the next 3 activations is this guy, who bleeds to death, this guy, who bleeds to death, and this guy, who bleeds to death. So we have just pools and pools of blood on this board. But luckily, now the odds are a little more in our favor. I cannot believe Reich and Dunch have been able to survive this entire time. But let's see what they can do now. Now, this next turn, they're going to have to rush over to the enemy and try to get this objective, because now the tables have kind of turned. And I've also been saving my feat, my special feat where they scream and all the enemies have to get 8 inches away. I've been saving that for the later turns in case we could get near the objective. Alright, we're doing this because it's a critical result. So the monster actually got 4 hits on Dunch. We're going to roll a 1 through 6 to save him. That's 2 saves. Oh, what's his last one? We saved it! So, Dunch takes 1 damage. That is amazing. I'm very, very excited. Dunch had 2 hit points left. The monster took a bleeding token, an extra one, and lost a hit point for charging. So, Dunch is now down to 1 hit point. Now we have to roll for the wound chart. An 8. Oh, I don't know what that is off the top of my head. I looked it up. Dunch is in agony. Dunch does nothing back to the monster in close combat, but he'll bleed out next turn anyway. Reich activates next, hops out of here, and moves down closer to the objective. The orange robot activates and charges Reich and does nothing to him, and unfortunately Reich does nothing back to him. I was really hoping Reich could slash out with his tentacle and kill the robot. The last activation is the green robot taking the bleeding token off the orange robot for charging. These little robots have been seriously good at stopping bleeding. The first activation this turn is the orange robot going after Reich again. He successfully assaults Reich. He does 2 hits, and Reich is able to save both of them. Reich strikes back, lashing out with his tentacle, wrapping him up and striking him in half with the sword, cutting this robot. So Reich is still holding his own with 1 hit point. Dunch has 1 hit point and is in agony. I am blown away that this is the result of this game so. Alright, I would honestly say this is in our favor now. The monster activates and just bleeds to death. He had 1 hit point left and collapses on the ground. And of course, you know, he's a blank. He's not an actual person. So we just killed the slime boss's pet. So unlike the sentient people like humans or whatever, this is a monster, and he actually does die for real. So Dunch is responsible for that. And then he backs up and moves to the objective, and then Reich is going to just sit right there, and I feel like we're going to win this. I feel like we will. Because this robot, just like his orange buddy, has no sense of self-preservation. He charges Reich, he does 1 hit, Reich saves it. Now let's see if Reich can replicate what he did before. 1 through 6? Nope, he doesn't. So he pushes Reich backwards, and he's going to gain a bleeding token, and that essentially means that we won. For the sake of it, we'll go 1 more turn, but this little robot has a bleeding token because the snipers don't know who they're shooting at. Remember, this is nighttime. And we, amazingly, we have been able to survive. Believe it or not, we have been rolling on the random event table each turn, but usually, actually every single time, it has done absolutely nothing. Like, at one point, the Devil Gunner got caught in a trap, and he just made the save, and so nothing was worth reporting. But this has been an amazing, amazing game. So, next turn, this little guy bleeds to death, and Reich and Dunch save the leader, Miles. That is extremely exciting. Then, I assume that they get the heck out of Dodge once they survive, once they escape, and they're going to just run straight out of here and get the heck out of this town. So I truly cannot tell you how surprised I am about the results of this. Dunch and Reich, each with 1 hit point, is just totally amazing. So I'm excited that this was able to turn around after such a terrible beginning. At the end of this battle, Dunch got 3 victory points, or 3 experience I should say, and he leveled up one of his passive abilities, and he also resets to healthy between missions now, which is awesome. And these are the rolls for his 8 up to build, so he's been busy building. He got a 9, he needed an 8 up, so we're going to be able to hold 8 people in our group if we ever get new people. On a scavenging roll, he added 3 gold in between the battles. And Gil rolled a 4 for inspiring, so he was not able to inspire anybody to remove their insanity. Reich was able to get an extra hit point because, by golly, he is so darn tough. He's a really, really tough character. So I gave him an extra hit point, and he's at 10 now. And I've got Lancer, barely leveled up at all. And I forget what I gave her. Oh, an extra save, I believe it was. And then the leader leveled up just 1 point, and it was able to get him a recruiting roll, which he actually made. So you see that I needed an 8 up, and he got an 8. So this new model is going to join us. Narratively, as we were fleeing the base, this woman appears, and she's actually part of the Collegium Carnum, and she wants to join us, Collegium Carnus, and she wants to join us, and she's been working undercover or something of that nature at this town. So I am hoping that she will be a good addition. She obviously can morph through things or phase through things, which I'm excited about. And I just recently painted this model, so I was happy that we got someone for a recruitment role so quickly. So my daughter named her Luna, so she's going to be Luna, and she's the new person added to our force. And that is about it. This is only our 2nd win out of 5 games. We will not be exploring between this and the next mission because I've got Gil with -2 to his fight skill, which is no good for a melee guy. I've got Reich with -2 to his dexterity, which is no good for a fast guy. You see what my point is. So they're going to remove those negative modifiers, and problem is I got Gil at 3 insanity. He's going to have to take a willpower check, or he might go insane before the next mission. You know what? We might as well roll it now. This is a very, very crucial roll. This could do anything from lose Gil all the way to make him hard to use or completely impossible to use. So before this next mission, he's got a willpower of 5. We've got to roll 1 through 5 for him to maintain his sanity, and he got a 3! Very excited to hear that. Hopefully we can do something about his insanity before the following mission. But as of right now, he is not insane yet. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. This has been a lot of fun for me, and it's been a good bonding experience for me and my daughter, Gabby. And it's been a lot of fun. This mission was a total roller coaster. I had no idea how this was going to end up. I really, really did think that we were going to lose, like, in the first or second turn. So it's amazing that Dunch and Reich were able to hang in there. So we'll see you on episode 6.